Welcome to Insight on the Jamaica News Network JNN. I'm Gabrielle Thompson filling in for Michael Sharp. An interesting discussion today. Joining me in studio is Dr. Aggrey, consultant psychiatrist and chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control, and Dr. Geoffrey Walcott, a psychiatrist and member of the same coalition. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello,
thank you so much
Gabrielle.
for being with me. So, first and foremost, what is the Jamaica Tobacco Coalition for Control? What is that?
The Jamaica Tobacco Coalition.
The Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control.
JCTC. Sounds remarkably like the JUTC, but it's also a vehicle for public transport, but transporting you to a place where you have knowledge which drives behavior. The JCTC started really at the turn of the century, and it's a coalition of various groups like the Medical Association of Jamaica, the Psychiatric Association, the Dental Association, the Nurses Association, the Diabetic Association, the Association of General Practitioners. In other words, almost everyone who jointly have a responsibility for preventing chronic disease for which tobacco is a part. But then that is just one half of the JCTC. The JCTC evolved as a child, really, of the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, but inseminated by these various organizations, but funded at the turn of the century by the combined campaign for tobacco-free kids, which is a group out of the US, funded by the presidential candidate Mike Bloomberg, who in his philanthropic way put money towards it, which supported the campaign, which in 2008 led to the joint activity that then evolved into no smoking in public places in 2011, thereabouts, 2012, when the JCTC, in combination with the Ministry of Health, Jamaica, managed to put certain things in place that would ensure a diminution in smoking
in
public places. And then finally, nowadays, looking at the whole business of vaping and smoking in general, because it's a sort of offshoot of that kind of thing.
And we'll get to the vaping and the e-cigarettes and everything, but Dr. Walcott, what are you doing having an opinion on marijuana? So it's Coalition for Tobacco Control, and Dr. Aarons outlined how it started, how it came about focusing on tobacco, but you've released statements saying, marijuana.
Well, one of the things that we have to look at, and you saw the list of organizations involved. These are persons who are directly affected in terms of the patients that they have to deliver care to. And certainly marijuana is no different from tobacco in terms of the risk and dangers that it poses. And it's really issues with things that are smoked, tobacco, marijuana. They do have the same health impact. Personally, in terms of the psychiatrist, we have a more vested interest in marijuana than anyone else, because most of the deleterious effects that we see from marijuana do end up in our offices in terms of the mental illnesses that can be worsened or triggered.
And you said something just now that many persons might just be sitting up or paying attention. You're saying there are side effects to marijuana?
Yeah, I mean, there are side effects to almost all drugs, and part of the issue, one of the things that we have almost universal agreement on is the dangers of marijuana smoking in adolescence in terms of damage it does cause to brain cells and brain development. That's almost universally accepted by both advocates of marijuana usage in terms of medicinal purposes and persons who are against it. In other words, we can agree on that for kids it's very dangerous and only can be used if the health benefits outweigh the risks. And so we are very clear on the issue.
And you will notice that the C in the JCTC, well, at least the second C, is about control.
Right.
It doesn't mention abolition or we are against anything. It is a matter of control, and control comes in many ways. And what we found was, as we advocated for tobacco control, more and more questions would be asked by the public. Okay, so we smoke cigarettes and we know what happened. well, this is Jamaica. What happens when we smoke? The other thing.
Right.
That is, and so even with our best intentions of not wanting to be opinionated on the marijuana subject, and in fact not wanting to be countercultural, we do have a responsibility as a coalition to speak about the dangers of smoking anything, even breadfruit leaf, banana leaf, which is what some youngsters do.
Right.
And our conclusions these days are always based on facts that are replicatable and have evidence to
And
support
a statement
them.
that has become, popular in recent times is facts don't care about your feelings. And something you touched on just now, Dr. Irons, is you don't want to be countercultural. And that was something that I've been thinking about ever since we started talking. Tobacco, we know. For many persons, tobacco might be an older thing, or they think cigarettes, but marijuana is younger, it's fresh, social media artists, they've given it this new spin. So we have more young people getting into it. How hard has it been for you to say to somebody, and yourself, Dr. Walcott, how hard has it been to say, hey, what, maybe ease up on it or don't do it at all? Especially younger people. How young are we talking are getting into smoking this thing?
Well, when you look at the household survey, which was very shocking to me actually, kids between age 13 and 17, almost 20% of them have had exposure to some form of smoked drug, whether it's nicotine or
A little bit more
marijuana.
than 20%.
A little bit more.
Uh-huh.
But when you look at
Those ages are 13 to 17.
13 to 17, and I use it specifically because when you look at the median over adult life, it's actually far less. So the at-risk population are really our young kids in terms of the exposure and experimentation. And usually that's an age of high-risk behavior across the board anyway. So we have to focus on prevention. Now, here's the difficulty. There's a significant difference between prevention and treatment, right? For prevention is easier in terms of, and the studies have shown, that once you have an associated risk, if you have perceived risk, it decreases usage. So getting persons to understand the dangers and getting persons to understand the deleterious effect can impact their actual engagement in the substance if they have never engaged in it. And that's an easier route to do. That's why we put a lot of energy on the education, the health promotion, the public issues, because stopping the problem before it starts is far easier. When the person is addicted now, that's a different kettle of fish.
And you have to reflect on the name of this very program. You call it Insight. That is what we're trying to generate in the minds, particularly of young people. Give them the facts so that they can make conscious decisions about their behavior. Now, behavior is also another important factor. Behavior is everything. Everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do. So we don't just affect what you do, but we have to affect how people think and what people talk about and how they respond to that. And with young people, that is very crucial because they're quick to point out any sort of inconsistency in an attitude or, an edict.
And Dr. Walcott pointed out giving people the facts. And we think we know the facts. You say, all right, if you smoke, it damages your lungs. But you're mentioning that there are other effects. What are the facts about smoking? All right, I'm asthmatic, I shouldn't do this, damages the lungs.
If you look at what you have just said,
right,
in terms of lung disease and lung cancer, which is what is associated with cigarette smoking, the leading cause of death from cigarettes is not lung disease.
Really?
It's heart disease. If you are lucky to live long enough, you will develop lung cancer, but you usually die far long before that from a heart attack or a stroke, and that just shows you how much of the misinformation that's there. 50% of the persons who smoke cigarettes, the cause of death is heart disease. Hence why the founding organization is the Heart Foundation. But that's where the problem hits. So when people think about cigarette smoking, especially in our culture, we think about persons dying of lung disease. But we never see that the majority of people in our culture have heart attacks and strokes. And that's associated with cigarette smoking.
Those little things called blood vessels that supply the oxygen to the heart and to other important organs, those are the ones that suffer. Okay? And when that closes down, it leads to death.
So I had the opportunity to teach English in France for 7 months. 7 months of...
Oui.
Bah oui. 7 months of interacting, and I taught persons interestingly, in that same age group, so I taught from 13, 14, going up to 18, and then dealt with persons 20 odd. And I remember we were looking at stereotypes, what are Jamaican stereotypes, and of course marijuana came up. Bob Marley came up, Usain Bolt came up, but marijuana was a sticking point for them. And finding out that I didn't smoke was something that absolutely shocked my students. Actually, some of them were disappointed.
Well,
so,
I would imagine, son, you probably don't sprint and you probably don't play
I don't do a thing.
cricket.
I'm just
but
here.
Did you notice that France really could qualify as the smoking capital of the world?
And that's where I'm going with this. So I asked one of them, you know, it's a stereotype for you, for your country, that French people smoke a lot, and they didn't see it. It's one of those things that's so embedded in their culture, they didn't see it. And France has passed laws that you aren't allowed to smoke inside bars and restaurants. So walking just in France, you'll be out there and just coughing or just going through a haze of cigarettes. And I asked 15, why do you smoke? I don't know.
No,
15,
remember
I don't
also
know.
some of the things we quote from come from a global youth survey, and we are only a part of it here in Jamaica. The results were published, I know, as late as 2017, and they're about to do another study now. But these figures are very, very real, and the figures for Jamaica compare very well with the figures for the rest of the world. You know, so we're not alone.
And we're going to have a bit more discussion about this survey and even more about what the coalition does after our first break. Thanks for staying with us. This is Insight on the Jamaica News Network, JNN. Continuing our discussion with Dr. Aggrey, the consultant psychiatrist and chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control, and Dr. Geoffrey Walcott, psychiatrist and member of the coalition. Now, before the break, Dr. Aarons, we were talking about the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, and I have some information here. It was conducted in 2017 by the National Council on Drug Abuse and the Ministry of Health, and it was, as the name suggests, a global survey. But some figures here from it. 66.1% of students definitely thought that other people's tobacco smoking was harmful to them, and over 73% favored prohibiting smoking inside enclosed public spaces. So my question to you, gentlemen, as members of the coalition, you have treated patients, you've worked with people who've treated patients. Is it harder talking to these young people or to the older people? I know you said it's easier to prevent if they've never started it before, but is it easier in your personal experience dealing with these youngsters, these younger ones, 13 to 17, or dealing with the older people? Who's more receptive to this knowledge? Dr. Walcott?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. For some degree, and I'll tell you why. And again, it goes back to the understanding of addiction and what it is. When you're engaging in promotional activities and you do educate the youngsters about the dangers, they are very receptive. In other words, a very tiny, and you see the figures, 60 to 70% of them have positive image. But there is at least a 20 to 30% that view smoking as an enhancer of social engagement or appearance.
Cool.
Right, and that they look cool, they're able to make more friends, and they're able to look more attractive. But when you talk about the older folks, and it's very intriguing, cigarette smoking is probably the only drug that you will have somebody lighting up a cigarette and see someone else lighting up a cigarette and appeal to him if he can stop it to stop. That is how very difficult it is. In other words, the effects on the smoker is very, very apparent. Breathing problems, decreased exercise, coughing. So you have persons who are actually smoking, who want to stop, but it is a very addictive substance. The success rate of cessation, cold turkey, is 5%.
So only 5% of persons who are smoking are able to stop successfully.
Right,
Without
assistant. In other words, without assistant. Only 5% of people are able to stop by themselves cold turkey, just stop smoking, 5%.
And unfortunately, we only have Dr. Aarons for the first half of the program. Dr. Walcott and I will be here until 11. So Dr. Aarons, leveling all of this at you now. We mentioned addiction, how hard it is to stop. How easy is it to get addicted?
Well, one of the things I should add for your benefit, asking about the young people, one of the biggest sources of support is the child in the household appealing to the parents to not smoke. They are our greatest ally. They nag, they say, you know, this is what we're learning, and so on. And we're grateful to those children. But there are also those children who think that, you know, you look cool, more attractive, just like in the Hollywood movies, and you, as Geoffrey said, have more friends, you know, because of smoking. That's about 11, 12%, but remember, some kids are the opinion makers in the school, and they get followed in terms of activity. But remember now, in an atmosphere where football and track and field is important, and where you get, you know, kudos for
doing those things.
You know, you don't want to smoke, you don't want to do anything that makes you. So there's a competitive or a yin and yang situation in terms of.
But how easy is it though to get addicted? Because if you're hearing that it's only 5% of people unassisted are stopping. I mean, I tried one in the past.
Addiction is almost part of human nature. It is a process that every one of us can go through very easily. Some people have what we loosely refer to as an addictive personality, whereas from birth and through maturity, they're dependent. They like to be ratified by outside sources. They have lowish self-esteem, all of those things. But you and I could become addicted to any substance because a part of the addiction process lies in the substance itself.
Which in this case
like
for
nicotine,
cigarettes is nicotine.
Caffeine, cocaine, and this is why, for example, we hasten not to use the word addiction when it comes to our friend marijuana, because there's an incompleteness in the addiction process, thank goodness, where that is concerned.
What would that incompleteness be?
We call it habituation, that it's something we get in the habit of, but when you stop, the withdrawal symptoms are imperceptible.
Yeah.
And so, that is why you put it in a special category.
Marijuana is in its own little category. Earlier we were
Big
talking
category.
about a big one.
Yeah, because it's a significant.
We were talking earlier about my experience dealing with teenagers in another country. Interestingly though, the French Education Ministry and other agencies such as yourself in that country, they've launched what they call in French, un mois sans tabac. It's a month without tobacco. And being there, I saw the posters, there were ads on television, they were trying to get them a month without tobacco, trying to get them not to smoke. Mm-hmm. Would we ever attempt something like that for our 13 to 17?
Well, we have World No Tobacco Day on May 31st every year. And we make a concerted effort to really do the highlight. And a life without tobacco is something we push in schools and through the coalition and so on. But this Amor, or whatever.
Amor sans tobacco. A month without tobacco.
Yeah. Is a great idea. You know, we haven't used that length of time as a sort of marker, but we certainly promote World No Tobacco Day and No Tobacco Life.
Jumping back into conversation with you now, Dr. Walcott, you mentioned that cessation rate of 5%. Really not able to get over that. So Dr. Aaron said that, you know...
No, remember,
unassisted.
And that's the difficult.
Unassisted, and that's the difficult part.
All right, so first of all, tobacco dependency, nicotine dependency is a mental disorder. It's a mental illness.
Classified
as a mental illness. And therefore, you have a management protocols that include medication and psychological and social intervention schemes that will help in terms of getting persons to move past the addiction. And there's an issue that in the addictive process that you're always recovering, never recovered, and that holds firm, especially with nicotine. Because as Dr. Irons was speaking about, the withdrawal effects from nicotine is horrendous. People go into severe depression, people go in, get increased weight, their mood regulation diminishes, they have horrific problems when it comes to the withdrawal period with tobacco.
And one of the common things is you always hear, I can stop whenever I want to. I'll be able to stop. And again, conversations I've had.
Well, as we told you, that only applies to 5%.
5%. But it's something that you hear a lot, and persons say, all right, I'll just do it for today. I need it for now. I need to calm down. I had a conversation with a lady last year, and she said, leading up to pregnancy, wanted to get pregnant, stopped smoking, had her son, was fine, had one night out with her friends, card games, a little bit of liquor involved. And they said, oh, you don't want one? She said, no, man, I'm not smoking. And I said, you sure you don't want one? She had one. And just went again. And so it's one of those things that we know that smoking is very social, it's very sociable, it's our culture. But for persons who are listening now or watching now who might want to be able to stop, is there any way they can?
We have to be careful. This, how we say it is our culture, you know. Mm-hmm. Because that may not be necessarily true.
Ah, okay.
Okay? It is learned behavior, and it is also a following of example. Remember, when the soldiers were going to war, the big war that gave us our freedom in the 40s, cigarettes were part of their ration. That was part of what they had to use to lessen the vibe, ease the tension, etc.
Calm themselves.
And you would see them giving out tobacco throughout Europe and so on. And then they come back and you have the whole Hollywood thing. Never a movie was made without somebody lighting up a cigarette.
Had to have it.
And so on. And the cowboy thing with particular brands of tobacco and sports, and it was just fashionable. So it became cultural because there was cultural manipulation. Now I'm hoping that later on, when I'm gone, Dr. Walcott will tell you about how people use that cultural side in reverse to change behavior back to really what is culturally appropriate and what helps to cure and prevent mental health problems,
and
of which
problems.
Smoking is one of them.
So Dr. Walcott, we're talking about that on e-cigarettes, but for you, Dr. Aarons, while you're still here, mentioning all of that and all of the ingredients, and we've seen a push. It's been there that if you look at a tobacco or a cigarette package, the warning is there. Is it working?
It is working to a certain degree, and it's kind of scary because it also goes with some terrible pictures of lungs and so on and so forth. But the thing is that there is also legislation that is supposed to accompany that. And there are things that our country has signed on to, which are yet to be completed. But
Such as?
the whole tobacco-related legislation, let's put it this way, for penalties and so on. So that is coming, but it's taking a little while to come.
Would the coalition want there to be an age ban on tobacco? Let's say you have to show ID.
Absolutely, but it is there.
Because
the thing is 18 years.
Under this section of the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, 54.9% of current cigarette smokers bought their cigarettes from a store, a shop, a street vendor, or a kiosk. And persons who tried to buy the cigarettes, 63.5%, were not prevented from buying them because of their age. Is it possible, do you ever see in the future saying, all right, show me your ID if you want to buy this?
That's not going to happen when you have an informal market and you have people at school gates and other gates selling other addictive substances. You know, including the ones with the whole heap of sugar and etc. etc. No, that seems to be part of our culture, but it's also part of, you know, the fight against poverty.
And just before we go to the break, Dr. Aarons, you're just here with us for this segment. What do you want to see done for the coalition? What else are the plans you have in store?
Well, it's not for the coalition, you know, it's for the whole country. And a friend of mine was mentioning social re-engineering on another TV program this morning. We have a responsibility, those of us who are behavioral scientists, since we accept that behavior is the think, say, do combination in affecting how people think, how people relate, and what people do. And when the powers that be who want to change people's behavior recognize that that is a route that they have to take. If you want people to stop smoking, you put a plan in place that affects their behavior and that they buy into. If you want people to behave in a certain way, then you have to engineer it in a certain direction.
Or reward the behavior.
Not or, you have to do that. And not seek to withdraw favors in order to punish people into the right behavior.
That was Dr. Aggrey, consultant psychiatrist and chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control. With him is Dr. Geoffrey Walcott, psychiatrist and member of the coalition. We're up on a break here on Insight. When we come back, Dr. Walcott and I discuss e-cigarettes and how to change our culture, use the culture to incite change. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. This is Insight on Jamaica News Network, JNN. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. With me in studio to continue our discussion is member of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control and psychiatrist, Dr. Geoffrey Walcott. Dr. Walcott, we're talking e-cigarettes, we're talking vaping, all of that. What persons are using, maybe they'll say, listen, my e-cigarette is better than the cigarette or the marijuana. I'm not rolling a spliff. This is no puff puff pass anything. I'm just doing e-cigarettes and vaping. Is it better?
No. So one of the focus of the JCTC is actually the combating of what we call misinformation and ensuring that policies and directives are based in evidence. The evidence shows that because when e-cigarettes came out, they actually were brought out being marketed as smoking cessation tools, that you can use them to step down your cigarette smoking. But the evidence shows that that actually is very minimal in terms of persons successfully being able to use it. There are things like nicotine replacement patches on gums which can be used, which have a clear outline. But the vaping pens and the vaping products are not. In fact, it's the opposite. Persons who are non-smokers who get involved in vaping tend to have that transition now into cigarette smoking. And this is most critical.
Really?
Because one of the issues that we wanted is there's no such thing as a safe nicotine product. Because the vaping issue also is that because you're only putting out water vapor, it's not what comes out that causes the problem, it's what stays in. And nicotine is a toxin. In other words, nicotine does cause significant problems health-wise, as we've seen here. And so that's part of the myths and the misinformation that we're trying to counter, that they are safe products. They are not safe products. And you recognize that recently in the States there was the whole issue of people dying from the vaping
right.
products. In other words, this is not a safe alternative.
And that there is no safe nicotine product.
Absolutely
Now,
not.
from that same Global Youth Survey that we've been looking at, over 11%, 11.7% of students and 13.7 of them being boys, 9.7 girls, they're using electronic cigarettes. And one of the interesting things about the marketing is that I've seen the ads for them. I've seen them on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on Tumblr, they're on Twitter. All the social media that students frequent or kids these ages, the persons in them look very good. They look very fashionable, they're up to fashion. And the e-cigarettes and vape pens themselves, very sleek, marketed to look like the technology you use now, using the same type of charger you use now to charge it. But you are saying to us that it doesn't matter what they're saying, it still is not healthy.
No, the evidence shows. In other words, studies have shown that they are not safer in terms of risk, health risk, both short-term and long-term health risk. And more importantly, as you talk about advertising, and this again speaks to some of the things that JCTC has been doing. If you recognize that the actual local marketing of cigarettes product is non-existent. In other words, you don't see local ads.
Yeah, there's
for
no
cigarette
need to.
product.
You know where to get them though.
No, but that's not true. In other words, there used to be. But there has been a lobbying to reduce the so-called pro-smoking information because it's misinformation to the public and it violates trust. Yeah, people know where to get cigarettes, but you cannot market it as a product that has any benefit because it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's addictive. It is a health risk. It's a health hazard. And as we're saying, people will smoke, but they have to be informed appropriately about the accurate information as it regards to the product they take. So somebody will take up a cigarette box and look and says, this thing will give me a heart attack or stroke, and then they light up the cigarette. But that is the decision that they've
chosen, yes, they've made.
But they are aware of what the health risks are. If now we have a situation where, as you say, people look slim and you're lighting up cigarettes and you say cigarettes will help you to be this or be that, that's misinformation and that we're totally against. And we have been struggling in terms of getting the policy directives, which have come on board with the ban on smoking in enclosed spaces.
Enclosed spaces, right.
That's very intriguing. The ban in enclosed spaces is actually very successful.
So enclosed spaces would be schools, restaurants, any enclosed
building
space
with a roof and 4 walls or a wall,
You're
or
not
one
allowed
wall,
to
at least a
smoke.
wall. 20, it's 15 feet, I think, or 6 meters. I forget the measurement, but you are not.
Have to be removed some ways from it.
Yes, and
Right.
the reason for that is the risk of second and third hand smoke for persons who have not made the decision to engage in the activity that's killing you.
What's the danger of second-hand smoke?
Very high risk in terms of all the health risks that you get with smoking. You have significant increase in persons exposed to second and third hand smoking.
What's third-hand? We know
All right.
second-hand if
Second-hand
you're smoking and it blows to
on you.
me.
But third-hand smoking is now when I have smoked or I was smoking this morning, and then I come home to a loved one and I'm taking you up and hugging you because the cigarette residue are on the clothing.
I'm breathing it in.
And you're
so
breathing
let's say
it in
you're
and it's touching your skin.
taking a taxi, you're taking a bus, you're going
Absolutely.
from halfway tree, going downtown, and somebody flicks away the cigarette but leaves it, comes in the taxi, is talking, and you're just
And you can smell it on the clothing. In other words, you can smell, what you're smelling is actually the residue and the chemicals from the cigarettes because it stays on the person. So that's third-hand smoking. And all of those different levels carry increased risk of all the diseases that you see with cigarette smoking. And so it is a risk. And it's unfair now for the person who is not engaged or has not taken the decision to smoke.
I'm not doing
to
it,
be
but I'm
exposed to
at risk.
And so that's why the ban was quite successful. And most people will see it. The truth is, most persons adhere to the ban not because they are afraid of the consequences, but because it was explicitly stated that this is something that should not be done because it's unfair to others. And people adhere to it. So if you are able to have clear policy directives and clear policy guidelines, most well-thinking Jamaicans, and there are a lot of well-thinking Jamaicans, will abide by them.
How do we reward persons for not smoking? Looking again at 13 to 17, because I want our audience or viewers or listening to understand that persons 13 to 17 in Jamaica right now are smoking. So persons in high school, that's your young children, are smoking. How do we reward them for saying, thank you for not doing this? Here's what we're giving you.
I think one of the things that we undervalue is the issue of social connectivity and impact. In other words, the creation of social groups and social coalitions within the schools that support healthy lives. I know the National Council on Drug Abuse has done a lot of work in fostering healthy lifestyle clubs in schools.
Right.
And they've done a lot of work in terms of health promotion and creating activities where persons can get involved, like sporting activities, outdoor activities. So those things are important. Sports on a whole is a preventative measure. In other words, once you're engaging in sporting activity, smoking anything at all will have to decrease because it's physically impossible for you to do both.
To both and be successful.
Exactly, and so that in itself is both a reward and a preventative measure. Once you're fostering and enhancing engagement in sporting activities, in physical activities, outdoor activities, things that provide you with the same physiological reward that most of the addictive substances do.
Now, earlier we were talking about vaporizers, e-cigarettes, and what people call the electronic nicotine delivery system, ENDS or ENDS. One of the interesting things about the advertisements that we spoke about, there are flavors to them.
Yes.
So your regular cigarette just comes in your pack, Dr. Walcott, and it's just a cigarette.
Yes.
But the vapes now and the e-cigarettes, there's strawberry, there's chocolate, and recently Carreras had wanted to come with a citrus one, and the JCTC said no.
It's actually there.
So they have the citrus flavor.
But we are lobbying to have it, the regulations being placed on it. And the reason for this is the flavoring issues. First of all, you're adding an additional chemical compound to an already large vat of chemical compounds that cause health problems. But second, it's not geared towards persons who are smokers.
Children.
It's for persons who are non-smokers, because the very taste and flavor of cigarette products is a turn-off. So if you can eliminate that, you can actually enhance your initiation. And the reason why most of the cigarette companies, and I won't single out the one here, have to continually try to recruit new smokers, even though their products have a very low success rate of persons actually stopping using it, is that their customers die. So they really kill out a lot of their customers. So by age 50 to 60, most of their customers would have already been dead from a heart attack or a stroke. So they're losing large amounts of customers because of the product that they're selling. So the people die. So they have to keep replacing it. But we have to ensure that the tactics and techniques that they use are not in violation of regulations that exist in the country to regulate tobacco products, or the targeting of an illegal age group, which is under 18 in this country is an illegal age group for all psychoactive substances, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana. So you are not legally allowed to use any of these substances under the age of 18, or you're not legally allowed to sell anyone under the age of 18. So the issue is not that the policies are not there, it's the enforcement has to be more stringent, because I think we're all in agreement that anyone under 18 should not be using any drugs at all.
And one of the interesting things, looking at the e-cigarettes and the vaporizers, is knowing that the marketing is to younger persons, and knowing that you're coming in with, oh, it's chocolate, it's strawberry, and you're saying, all right, but you're not going to taste the taste of the nicotine, you're not going to do any of this at all. Earlier, though, we had said that persons unassisted stopping smoking, cessation, you call it, is at 5%. In your experience, how can persons who would like to, who feel like, all right, I think I've had one too many cigarettes or anything, what are the methods that the JCTC recommends for stopping? How can they start?
One of the things you need to do is engage with your health provider. So a general practitioner or a psychiatrist or a mental health provider. And we can structure a treatment program for you for dealing with the issues of the addiction, because it's not a simple thing as stopping the cigarettes or not smoking. And the reason why it's only 5% is because it is very difficult to stop. And then you have to manage the very traumatic things that happen to you once you stop, because let's not be think about it. Very bad things are going to happen to you the minute you decide to stop smoking, and you have to manage them. Weight gain, irritability, severe depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts and ideation. We have to manage those. But those, once managed, will lead you to a longer, healthier life.
Healthy life. And with that, we take a break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing two popular methods for persons they normally use when they want to stop, and looking at how to use culture to incite change among smokers and non-smokers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Interesting discussion here on Insight on JNN. Sitting with me is a member of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control and a psychiatrist, Dr. Geoffrey Walcott. And we're talking about e-cigarettes, vaporizers. But now we're looking at two popular methods for persons who want to stop smoking cigarettes. Before the break, Dr. Walcott said for persons who are serious about stopping or would like to stop, one of the first steps is to go to your healthcare provider, talk to somebody about it, because this is very serious. Bad things will happen once you stop, but it is better that you stop.
Yeah,
stopping means a longer life.
And this is the thing that we have to take into consideration, because a lot of the times we think that once a person stops using the drug, any drug, that their life is automatically better. And the truth is, we have to pay attention to the reasons why the person is using the drug in the first place. Is that they may have something that's already there that needs to be treated. And some of these substances, nicotine especially, has horrific withdrawal effects. Nicotine and heroin are the one of the...
What are some of the effects on nicotine?
Irritability, depression, weight gain, lethargy, a lot of the neurological problems you get, the agitation, anxiety. These are some of the common things that occur. And the depression can be protracted, so it really requires you to have some proper management. And you talk about now what are the steps we put in place. And why you need your healthcare provider is that you have to actually structure your lifestyle in a way that promotes a healthy, active social engagement. You have to replace most of the activities with exercise, with social engagements. You talk about reward, and we talk about how building groups in schools helps to foster this.
Right.
Changing the social engagement where you are in a social environment that is health promoting rather than substance promoting. So shifting your social environment. The exercise is quite critical, especially in
how much
dealing
exercise we're talking?
with the depression. We're talking not more than probably 30 to 45 minutes a day.
So a little jumping up and down, downloading
and a lot of cardio. In other words, once you get your body active, because your brain, you know, once you start exercising, your brain releases endorphins, which are your natural feel-good hormones, yeah? And they help you to combat these negative emotions that will sink into your head. So if you're exercising regularly on a daily basis, you are more upbeat, you're better able to face the world. And that's a fact. In fact, most studies have shown that exercise is as effective as antidepressant treatment medication in treating mild to moderate depression. So we know the benefits of exercise, and you need that, especially given the problems that the cigarettes and the nicotine products have caused, because you're having vascular problems, circulatory problems. These are a given. That once you're smoking, you are having these things. It's not a question, it's a fact. So exercise will help to reverse a lot of these damages that you have been doing.
And many persons might hear that and they might be nervous. And for that reason, there are two popular methods that persons have decided, all right, I'm going to go this road alone. Afraid, I'm not going to talk to Dr. Walcott because he said this is going to happen. I'm going to eat a banana a day, or maybe buy 5 from the man down the road, and I'm going to wear a nicotine patch. Are you aware of these popular methods?
Some of them. The replacement therapy in terms of oral therapy, banana is a strange one, but usually gum is what the most common one is, that if you have something in your mouth that it will distract you. And that's about distracting cravings. And you do have psychotherapeutic techniques that we use, such as replacement therapy, imagery that we recognize. And if it's effective, then it's effective. In other words, the end goal is that you stop smoking.
But it doesn't replace.
The nicotine patch is very intriguing, because the nicotine patch actually, they have dosage that step down. So it actually gives you a gradual reduction in your nicotine content over time, which minimizes a lot of the withdrawal effects that you have. And so that's one of the things that is actually very good, but they're very expensive out here especially. And that might not be an option, but certainly you have to have some form of management protocol in place for dealing with the withdrawals. And rarely do people stop just off the bat. Even if they're smoking still, having a record of how much they smoke and working on a reduction plan that takes them over time, structuring it, because part of the issue is that people who smoke and are addictive, their smoking patterns are very erratic. They will smoke a pack in an hour, or they will smoke 2 cigarettes in a day. So you have to regularize your smoking pattern first, and then you start decreasing it over time.
And one of the best, just phrases of advice is, if you haven't started as
Don't
yet,
start.
Don't start.
And the best person to tell you that is somebody who's been smoking for at least 10 years. They will look at you with a cigarette in their mouth and tell you, do not do this.
Do not do it. But
guarantee you.
earlier we were talking just about, and I had said to Dr. Aarons when he was here, oh, we have a culture of doing this. And he was saying, maybe don't say it like that. We have a history of presenting it as something good. So how do we...
I think the danger in culturalizing it is because it's really in the minority. It's not the majority of people that do use
So don't
cigarettes.
present it as the thing.
It's not the thing. And that's part of the problem that we have in our culture. We tend to glamorize the negative aspects of our society, which are actually in the minority. Most of the people are healthy thinking, most of them are adaptive, most of them engage in healthy activities. But it's just a minority of people that, so 14 to 20% of people adults who smoke cigarettes, 20% in kids. So it's not the majority. The majority of people are anti-smoking and are not engaging in it. But it's a minority that engages in the activity. So it's not a cultural issue. What we are trying to do now is to use counterculture. So counterculture is highlighting the aspects that will combat the need to engage in cigarette smoking, like highlighting the dangers, highlighting alternative activities that you could be engaged in, highlighting things that are more beneficial, such as sporting activities, such as social engagements, where it's a pro-social, pro-health, social connection with others.
And someone shared on Twitter recently that an older Rastafarian gentleman told him, we say marijuana is medicine, but you don't take medicine when you're not sick.
Well, that's absolutely true.
So that's one of the other things. So many persons looking at marijuana, looking at cigarettes, looking at tobacco, looking at the e-cigarettes, they'll always tell you, all right, we're socializing, doing this. So you're saying counterculture is understanding that this is what happens if you do, here's what you could do otherwise, and let's do it together. And again, we're focusing on the 13 to 17-year-olds and maybe the young adults as well. So for teachers, for principals, for school boards, those who might be listening, encourage them to join clubs together.
Yes.
Encourage sporting activities.
And encourage the health promotional activities within your own schools in terms of the dangers of smoking, a lot of the information, so that and again, it's about giving evidence. In other words, we're not giving things that we feel or think might happen. So persons will tell you, oh, cigarette smoking is going to cause lung cancer, but you look around you, how many people do you know with lung cancer? Not a lot. But the evidence shows that you only get lung cancer if you're lucky.
And
you die long before that from heart attacks. How many people you know with a heart attack? Everybody knows at least 2 people that have dropped dead from a heart attack, at least. Because we have high levels of chronic diseases. And cardiovascular disease is quite rampant in our society. Yeah, hypertension. Cigarette smoking contributes to hypertensive disease.
So the bottom line is understanding that not smoking is better for your overall health, physically, mentally. It is an addictive substance. It's a toxin. You don't want that in your body. And if you haven't started, as we said, do not. And one of the important things you said, Dr. Walcott, is there's no good that comes from this thing.
No.
None at all.
And the other aspect, if you have started and if you are doing it, we're here to help you, not judge you. In other words, we know what you are going through.
It's not too late. It's not too late.
Not too late, but we are here to help you. It is not something that is easy. It is not something that can be done in a blink of an eye. We will be here to support you in the long run for you to live a better, healthier life. And it's not for us to say you are a bad person for doing this, which we have gone through the whole moralistic issue, which is ridiculous. The reality is that it's an illness, and it has to be dealt with like an illness, and persons who are suffering, because that's what's happening, they are suffering, need and deserve to have their suffering alleviated, and we have to work with them.
That's a fantastic way of looking at it. It's not something that you should be penalized for.
Absolutely
it's
not.
Something that you
illness.
need help with.
You need help with it.
And so one of the best suggestions we've gotten so far in this conversation, if you are smoking and you want to stop, speak to your healthcare professional, talk to them in setting up structures, and also understanding why are you doing it. What's causing you? What makes you want a cigarette? What's pushing for this? But also understanding that if you are smoking or you've overcome the addiction, talk to somebody about it. Encourage people not to smoke, because, as you said, somebody will have a cigarette in their hand and tell you, boy, don't do that, you know.
Yeah, because they know the trauma that's causing them.
And also understanding the dangers of second-hand, third-hand smoke. So the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control, your position on smoking, don't do it. If you are,
seek help.
Seek help.
And if you need help, we can guide you and direct you into where avenues to get help.
And hopefully we'll see our version, the Jamaican version of the month without tobacco.
Well, we're looking for a life without tobacco. In other words, what we want is a culture in which we are engaged in sporting activities, creative arts, drama, because we are a strongly endowed cultural people with high levels of we talk about in the culture. Our culture is a highly
energized, creative,
we just
integrated,
coffee
social.
just won a Grammy. That's fantastic.
Yes,
so in other words, we have all the elements of healthy life,
other outlets
living.
for,
and I think that is what we have to promote.
But Dr. Walcott, if persons are hearing you, they know now that you're a psychiatrist and a member of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control. How do they get in touch with you? They've heard you. It appealed to them that, listen, I might need to talk to somebody about this, or I need to get somebody I know to talk to you. How do we get in touch?
All right, well, my offices are 23 Connolly Avenue. It's 922-3216. And we're open Mondays to Saturdays.
So that's Connolly Avenue in
right
Kingston.
Opposite Wilma's Girls' School. That's the easiest
Opposite
landmark.
Wilma's Girls' School.
No, everybody knows where
and you can
Wilma's
get in touch at 876-922-3216, open Mondays to Saturdays.
Yes. And we have psychologists, associate psychologists, so we can structure any treatment plan you need to help you through the difficult times.
And understand that what Dr. Walcott is saying, that throughout all of this, there'll be somebody to guide you, to be there with you. You will not be alone. There's no judgment here for you. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. This is Inside the Cause and Effect, a deeper look at the story behind the story. We had a very interesting conversation today. In studio, we had Dr. Aggrey, consultant psychiatrist and chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control. And here with me now is Dr. Geoffrey Walcott, psychiatrist and member of the coalition. We talked a lot about who is smoking, why are they doing it, why you shouldn't do it, what are the dangers of doing it, and how you can get help if you need to stop. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week, this time for Inside on the Jamaica News Network, JNN.